Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto News. And one of the coins that's had a very interesting performance over the last couple of weeks is Cardano ADA. And now, by far, the most important news all revolves around the new upgrade that's coming up, the Vasil hard fork. Now, if you're asking me, what it's going to do for the price, it's hard to say. There have been multiple different updates for Cardano that have done really well for the price. There's multiple updates that have done nothing. There's very often this idea that the anticipation of the upgrades is what does more for the price than the actual upgrade itself. It's also kind of logical that it will always fall down to this buy the rumors, sell the news fallacy. And at the end of the day, all I can say is that if you're a Cardano holder, these things are great because you know the network is expanding, you know they're doing great things, and well, in reality, you can watch for all the smaller epochs, but it's the bigger ones that really make Cardano a great long-term project. One thing to back that up by is that Cardano has performed rather well with the entire market moving downwards, and one of the reasons why that might be the case is because they go for this slow but steady approach, which is honestly why I'm always so excited about Cardano. There's a lot of skepticism, and the main point I think people have is that they really aren't doing that much, but again, that's one of the things you're going to see with a project that likes to take things slow and gradually move into something. So what's going on? Well, apparently, Cardano Vasil hard fork has been postponed to allow for more testing. We knew this, but did you also understand why this was done? As I said before, they have a peer-reviewed approach of looking at things first, making sure they're thought about properly, not to be the first to try some new prototyping crazy stuff, but look at technology that's been sort of thought out, and then perfect that technology to make your network as robust as possible. Some of the newer articles that just came out are showcasing they mostly had many things done, but they want to revamp, make sure it's done even more proper because, well, let's quickly read first. We determined we'll need a few more days for this. This puts us behind schedule on our previously communicated target date of June 29th for a mainnet hard fork. And actually, it's going to be a waiting time until all the way at the end of July. Here they said, today, IOG and the Cardano Foundation have agreed a new target date, hard fork, the testnet at the end of June. Once completed, we then will allow 4 weeks for exchanges and SPOs to carry out any required integration and testing work. This is only reasonable and should not be rushed. The working assumption should therefore now be a Cardano mainnet hard fork occurring during the last week of July. But honestly, when checking through the interwebs, there's a couple of articles which came out today and yesterday, but you guys get the idea. Mostly why they're basically pushing this back has to do with Terra, has to do with Luna, has to do with the fact that nowadays, the more that crypto develops basically, the less room for error you have to mess up. We've seen this currently with Solana. We've seen this crazy pressure from, I guess, the community on Solana for actually just going down every now and then. And Cardano doesn't want to be that guy that ever makes a quote-unquote mistake. Obviously, mistakes are going to be made here and there, but they'd rather make the mistake of being too slow, but then not having the network go down. So I guess what else is going on though? Cardano, decreasing number of whale addresses can have this impact. By the way, if you're wondering, you can actually look it up for yourself, just as I did right here. Vasil will be a network upgrade that would allow increased scaling capabilities on Cardano. That's the main purpose. So now that we've that out of the way, let's move into this one. Cardano decreasing number of whale addresses can have this impact. Apparently, not that many whales are interested in Cardano, it says right here. And actually what they're saying is that some of the whales are letting go of their money to drop it onto the exchange wallets and to some of the smaller unknown addresses. It's gone down about 2.5% over the last 3 months. Okay, let's say 3%. I honestly think a lot of this has to do with the anticipation of a new upgrade coming up, like we said shortly, right? Or I guess before this. People are anticipating a certain event to happen. When you anticipate this event to happen, depending on what the results that are going to be, you buy in with the anticipation that something's about to change. You don't buy after the change has occurred, you buy before it occurs. Why? Well, the moment that it changes, then what's the purpose of buying? All the people that thought about buying have already bought in. And since it's not a can fail type of scenario, the only way for the price to then pump again or dump again is if there's a sort of delay or if there's a change in the actual fork, which happened. So the moment that things get delayed, the moment that things change a little bit, the price usually falls down on the short term, because even though they're upgrading and doing things even better, supposedly, people usually don't like that too much. Then again, at the end of the day, Cardano is building themselves out to be a powerhouse for the longer term, so I'm not really too worried about it. This is also kind of funny because they don't compare it to other crypto. They just say that the price of this coin has dropped significantly and some of the explanations for it, but if we start to look really seriously at what Charles Hoskinson and the guys over at IOG and Cardano are doing, this is not a small crypto project anymore, guys. Cardano founder steals the show at congressional hearing. Hopefully you guys can read it all. If you can't, too bad. Congressional hearing on crypto regulation. In front of a congressional hearing, Hoskinson spoke cogently and appeared relaxed in making a case for more equitable regulatory treatment for the crypto industry. On June 23rd, Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson gave his take on the future of crypto regulation. The purpose of the hearing was to discuss the effectiveness of the current regulations with the view to implementing a future framework. A lack of regulatory clarity is a sore point for the industry. Recent times have seen this play out in numerous examples of heavy-handed enforcement, like, for example, against Ripple. However, representing the industry, Hoskinson put forward the position of developers, explaining how a public-private partnership would be in the best interest for all concerned. There's a couple of things which were interesting. Are crypto a security or a commodity? In his capacity as an expert witness, Hoskinson made the point that innovation makes specifics difficult. Therefore, regulation should focus on principles rather than formulating particular rules for individual events. He also gave some advice, I guess, for deciding on which risks to safeguard against, what rights users should have, and how to use the tools for the greatest possible good. On the matter of regulating crypto as commodities or securities, he said, the issue is more complex than resolving a binary argument, because when you look at crypto in general, I've always viewed them as financial stem cells. They're more fundamental than a particular category, like a currency or a commodity. Overall, it's been a long discussion as to whether or not cryptos are securities or commodities as a whole. It's obviously quite difficult because you can make a crypto commodity, you can make a crypto security. There's a lot to be said in the background about that, right? So every crypto, it's kind of its different sector. I mean, you can definitely say it's a currency, but following some of these definitions, it might not be. So where exactly does it fall? It is hard to say. He, however, stole the show. I think most sources that I checked out are all saying the exact same thing, that he's doing great for himself. You can see here one Twitter comment said that Cardano founder enlightened the committee with pure class. Another congratulated him on the great job representing the whole of the crypto industry really well, and people are generally speaking quite happy, with the way in which he represented himself, because once more, he's not doing anything negative, he's just explaining crypto regulation to some of these higher ups. He's done a really beautiful job, and I think that's also a beautiful thing for Cardano. One thing I should add here is one of the things I think about Cardano that a lot of people are forgetting is that they're focusing a lot on Africa. One of the things they're doing is these ID solutions and making sure that a lot of these, for example, right? Again, this is just a key example that I can kind of think of here. If you've done an education to make sure that it's stored on the blockchain in some way, shape, or form, or I guess maybe your ID, so what individual you are, so that it's stored on the blockchain, because a lot of this stuff is really hard to verify in some places around the world. Again, this is my word against somebody else's, but you guys get the idea. And it's some of the focus that's not necessarily as lucrative from the get-go, depending on how they go about it. But it's something that's really necessary and what can really show the use case of blockchain technology. And it always gets me excited when they focus on these types of things because it's something a lot of people neglect. But it's also just a really big sector with a lot of and underbanked, right? So it's also just smart business-wise. But a lot less lucrative on the short term. Just a quick little rundown of how crypto is doing, by the way. A lot of more people are taking profit right now. We've seen the adjusted SOPR, as we've covered a dozen times before, is still below 1, meaning a lot of people are still cashing out their losses as of this point. The longer that this stays below 1, the longer this goes on, and the longer this downtrend continues on here, you guys, I guess I'll showcase it like this. The longer that this downtrend here continues on, and the longer it stays below 1, the more it just showcases, yeah, people are selling their losses right now. So they were at a loss already, but they're selling it now. I try to look at the exchange net flow, for example, which shows, okay, more and more people are putting the money onto exchanges to sell it, which you might say is a negative thing. But at the end of the day, it's hard to see whether or not that's really true because there are a lot of these spikes towards the downside as well. And this is the net flow. Only inflows, only outflows that don't really matter. The net flow is what matters. But the exchange reserves we talked about before, even that one, it's hard to say whether or not it really has any crazy effect over the longer term. And for Cardano specifically, it probably doesn't have any. The same about these whales that we earlier talked about. It really doesn't mean too much because most likely the exact same scenario is going on in the entire crypto space. As people are buying Cardano mostly for the long term. If you check the community, a lot of people are excited about Cardano and they will hold till the bitter end. Let me know down below, guys. Are you a Cardano holder? Will you hold to the end? I personally think I will. Big holder, been holding for a long time, and I'm pretty excited about the project, specifically about the Vasil hard fork, which is coming up soon. A little bit later than expected, but still, I am pretty excited about Cardano.